This has been a really exciting time for us. As Tammy talked about, we turned tragedy into some wonderful things that we could do to progress, to cause our communities to continue to progress. The other piece was the fact that we were focusing in on rural areas that were often overlooked in elections. And what we were teaching and reminding people is sometimes the difference is that one vote, and getting people to understand the connection between their vote and really being able to make a difference, not only in their lives, but others. That has been such a big disconnect that we've found in the rural areas in general. People don't see how their vote impacts anything. We were able to, in our strategy, because of the pandemic, we also recognized that we were going to have to be very careful about what we were doing. And also, it was a year that we were making this up as we were going, as well as the country. No one really knew what the pandemic meant and what would be safe or not. So as a part of that, we came back and created a campaign to reach people in a way that it would be contactless and safe. In terms of outreach and getting information to people, we came up with these campaigns, number of registered voters, the number of voters that needed to register, and even identified young people who would actually be turning 18 in times for what became later the runoff elections. And in working with we partnered with the different organizations to get the volunteers out. And as we would go through the communities, we would also get people out, answer their questions from proper distance. And we also set up a protocol for our volunteers to ensure that they were safe. A checklist and things around the gloves, around the sanitizers, around the mask, and around, just really, really, really being very, very careful. We also put together packages of information for people that were handouts that we could actually put on their door knobs. And in those packages, it included the information that I talked about, but it also included samples of what a voter registration looked like, and what the election ballot would look like, and the common or most frequently asked questions that people would have, and with contact numbers so we could continue to educate people and help them with that. In many cases, we had people with us that were certified to help register people to vote, and literally had people fill out their paperwork that was then taken to the registrars in the respective counties that we were working in. So that became kind of the big piece of that. The second part that we did is we took advantage of other opportunities that drew people out. There were significant food distributions going on across those 8 counties, and people in our rural areas in this part of the country, we're dealing with a lot of poverty, and people needed that food. And so what we did there, we joined those food distributions and literally walked the lines of the cars as they were waiting for their food distribution, and gave them that information, same thing, in packages, to be able to scan, to help them answer questions around what they needed to do. But again, socially distanced, and continuing to put that in there. We also, as a part of that, we did things to help people do what they needed to do. We gave them packages of masks. We gave them packages with sanitizers. We encouraged them to practice safe practicing around that, because we also were educating them about the pandemic at the same time. So those were, at least I'll stop there for a second, Tammy, in terms of the base that was the core for what we did. Now, please understand this. We did not do this in terms of just wake up one day and say, let's do this. We did a lot of research. We utilized a lot of information from sources around in the state and across the country to really analyze, to know what our base was and where people were located. In the rural areas, it's not like you go around the corner. You go from one house in many cases, and another house may be many, 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 many feet away. And you're working off of highways in some cases for that. So we wanted to have a very focused effort. The last thing I'll mention in this piece, so Michaela can get in here, is what I talked about high school students. we recognized the impact of the youth in our area. We knew the demographics told us where they were, how big it was, and we worked with the schools that were doing voter registration. And we knew about how many people would actually, when we got to that point around voting, how many people were eligible to vote from an age standpoint. And also because of the Georgia law, new voters being able to come in and vote during a runoff, we were able to go back and pick up those students who turned 18 between the elections and get them involved in this. I think probably one of the most important pieces for us around this was around building those relationships with individuals in the community and building relationships with the local community governments. We were involved and had the mayors of the small towns were very much involved with us in helping us look at their community, because they never get anybody to come there and everything. We were very helpful in getting things to their communities that they normally do not get. And so they recognized us and saw that we were coming to help. We were there to stay. We were not going anywhere. We were going to continue to do voter education around that, because not only did we want people to vote in the election, we wanted to also start to cultivate a mentality of getting people to get involved and go and run in local elections, because as we know, politics is local. Running in local elections, understanding that entire process. So that became a core part of our strategy for moving forward on this. One of the things I wanted to say is a part of our overall strategy, it was based on basically 3 pillars. We wanted keeping it simple, keeping it safe, and establishing relationships that we're not coming just blowing through, we're coming back around and around. We use locals, people, and we recruited locally or volunteers to help us deliver that message. We kept the entire process fluid. That is, as we went in and we learned something, and if it worked, we continued to build on it. If it didn't work, we stopped and regrouped and figured out utilizing local people. Why was that not working? What would make more sense? What is the need? What will people respond to? What is that culture? One of the things that people forget a lot is that within a culture, there are a bunch of subcultures, and it varies from neighborhood to neighborhood, let alone county to county. And having resources, or at least respecting the area, respecting the individuals, and respecting the cultures of those areas was really important in establishing our credibility with individuals as we showed up, that it was really a very positive thing. So given that, we did variations on some of the same kinds of things. When you talked about gatherings, as we walked the neighborhoods, as we shared information, as we did the food drives, we also did events around letting people know we were coming. We added into that sometimes not only food distribution, but sometimes we actually had food distributed, hot meals on the spot that people could literally come up, because people needed that kind of thing. We tried to utilize as many of resources that were local, that people knew, or people that they respected, the informal leaders being a part of that. And we partnered with other organizations or other entities like churches or other alliances that were local, who had been there doing things for years. They lived there. We respected that in terms of not coming in on someone's turf, so to speak, and not respecting that. So we spent a lot. So it wasn't so much that what we were doing was super different activities. What we did that was different was really understanding and penetrating cultures and respecting the players that were there, acknowledging them, and recognizing that they brought something to the party. They knew their people. That's what helped us a lot.